Nathan Holloway had lived in the quiet town of Ashford all his life, the kind of place where nothing ever happened, where the biggest news was when the diner changed its special, where time itself seemed to move slower, until the day it skipped and no one noticed, or rather, no one remembered except Nathan, who woke up on what should have been Thursday, only for every calendar, every phone, every clock, every person he spoke to insist that it was Friday, not just mistakenly, not just casually, but with an unshakable certainty, a certainty that crawled under his skin, because the last thing he remembered was going to bed on Tuesday night. But Wednesday was gone, erased, unaccounted for, and the world had simply continued as if it had never existed. And at first, he thought it was some kind of prank, a joke, or maybe just exhaustion playing tricks on him. But as he moved through the town, his unease deepened, because something was wrong, something was off, not in any obvious way, but in the smallest, most insidious details, like the newspaper at the corner shop, which should have had yesterday's date, but instead printed Friday, September 14th, when Nathan distinctly remembered September 13th being a Wednesday, not missing entirely. The shopkeeper's confused stare when Nathan asked where yesterday's paper had gone, the way his co-workers at the library repeated conversations from days before as if they had never been said, verbatim, their tones eerily identical, as if they were reading from a script they didn't know existed. And then there was the clock tower, the one in the town square that had stood for over 100 years, its massive bronze hands always accurate to the second. Except today, its minute hand was moving backward, slow but deliberate, its ticking an unsettling whispered echo rather than a chime. And when Nathan pointed it out to a passing stranger, they smiled too widely, a flicker of something wrong in their eyes, and said, "The clock has always been that way," before walking off, leaving Nathan standing there, his heart pounding, his stomach knotting in cold fear, because suddenly he wasn't sure if he was going crazy or if everyone else had already lost their minds. And then came the shadows, subtle at first, shifting before they should, stretching in the wrong direction even when there was no light to cast them, creeping along sidewalks too fluidly, as if they weren't shadows at all, but something else, something aware, something watching. And the deeper Nathan searched, the less reality made sense, until he found the camera, his old security system at home, a cheap model that recorded in 24-hour loops, and his hands trembled as he scrolled back, heart hammering, breath shallow, until he found the footage of Wednesday, his missing day, except it wasn't missing. It was there, except it wasn't normal, because the footage wasn't empty. It wasn't just a blank gap of missing time. No, it was worse, because at exactly midnight on Tuesday, the world froze. Time itself came to a full, impossible stop, and for 24 hours, nothing moved, nothing changed. Not the wind, not the cars, not even the people, all of them standing motionless, suspended in place, eyes wide open, mouths slightly parted, breathing but unblinking, like mannequins awaiting animation. And Nathan saw himself sitting in his chair, the reflection of the paused world flickering in the dark TV screen, eyes staring straight ahead, as if his mind had been turned off. And it stayed that way, for hours, for the entire missing day, until, at 11:59 p.m., something shifted, something moved, something stepped into frame, something that wasn't human. A tall, oblong figure, indistinct and distorted, as if it were made of stretched time itself, its presence warping the footage like a corrupted file, its movements smooth yet jittering, as if it were both there and not there. A living paradox that made Nathan's stomach twist just looking at it, and it leaned down, close to his frozen, unseeing face, whispering something in a voice that wasn't a sound, but rather a feeling, a scraping sensation in the brain, an impression of words that didn't exist before standing up, slowly turning, and as the clock struck midnight, reality resumed, seamlessly, as if nothing had happened, except now. It was Thursday, and everyone simply continued as if an entire day had never existed, their minds edited, overwritten, wiped clean of whatever had transpired, except Nathan, who sat there now, shaking, the weight of his discovery crushing him, because something unfathomable, had taken a whole day, like a hand reaching down and plucking it from the flow of time, and no one had noticed, no one except him. But why, and what had it done? And as he sat there, cold sweat beading on his brow, the hairs on his neck standing on end, he became aware of something in the room with him, not a sound, not a movement, but a presence, a pressure in the air, and slowly, so slowly, he turned his head toward the dark screen of the TV, and his breath hitched. His pulse stopped, because there, in the screen's reflection standing directly behind him, was the figure, tall, warped, head tilted slightly as if studying him, its form distorting, and before Nathan could scream, before he could move, before he could even think, his vision blinked to black, the world stuttered, and suddenly it was Saturday, and Nathan was sitting in the library, his hands folded neatly on the desk, his body perfectly still, staring blankly ahead, the weight of something erased pressing in his skull like a forgotten dream. And across the room, at the front desk, a co-worker asked, "Nathan, did you hear me?" And he blinked, shaking his head slightly, not sure what he had missed, feeling lightheaded, unmoored, as if something had just slipped through his fingers, something important, but he couldn't quite grasp what. And finally he exhaled, forced a smile, and said, Yeah, sorry, just lost track of time."